What's good, Wizards fans? Welcome to part two of the Capital Crossover Podcast episode. It's your host, the real Ed Oliver and Brandon Scott, special guest Kyle Andrews. We're talking more about Bob Meyers and the Wizards' future with Michael Winger. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today we're on part two of the Capital Crossover Podcast episode with our guy Kyle Andrews. How you doing today, man?
Doing well. I'm excited as always.
Yes, sir. So we're talking a little bit about Bob Meyers, Will Dawkins, and Milton Newton. Some more about the Wizards. But I just wanted to ask you. So there was just a report that came out from Chris per CNN. He is a beat reporter for the New York Knicks. He came up with a report that the Washington Wizards, or that he heard from several sources that Bob Meyers turned down an offer in the ballpark of $15 million to lead the Washington Wizards. He won't be taking a side gig with the New York Knicks either. Bob Meyers did step down from the Washington Warriors yesterday. He did have a press conference if everyone listening did not hear about that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a bad thing? Or are you happy that Ted tried to get Bob Meyers? What are your thoughts about the whole situation?
It's like that, that Simpsons episode where Bart brought out the cake and he was like, "At least you tried." I'm not upset with it. I mean, hey, take it. That's what you got to deal with. Sometimes, look, you're gonna have times where people just, they're tired. They don't want to work right now, and I get it. After all he's done, he has the right to be able to relax a little bit. And the thing is, that's not a Wizards problem. I don't feel like he wants to take any job right now. I feel like this is just, not where he just doesn't want to. He wants to chill, and I get it. I totally get it. And maybe he might down the line. Bob Meyers is still fairly young. He's not even 50 years old yet. So, I mean, I think this is the time for him in his life where he could reset, go be with his family. And, that is what it is. That's not a knock on the Wizards. I mean, $15 million, that's a lot of money to be turning down. But it just goes to show you how much he is, focused on other things in his life right now. And they shouldn't, I don't feel like that's a knock against him, because he doesn't want to work with the Knicks either. So, I mean, it is what it is. And the Knicks went to the playoffs and have a more, I guess, promising. That's weird to say that the Knicks are more promising, right? But, that's not on them. That's not on the Wizards. So I think they tried, and that's all you can hope for.
Yeah, that was a great analogy with Bart Simpson and the cake for sure. So it's not like a Kevin Durant turning down the Wizards for the Warriors, or leaving us in the dust there when we tried to do everything. We hired Scott Brooks. We moved the stadium to where it is, or the practice facility. We hired his trainer as an assistant coach, where they tried to full court press for Kevin Durant. It's not that bad, and it's not as bad when we tried to get Al Horford. He turned the Wizards down too. So like you said, he is taking a break, which is well deserved. He's won multiple championships, made a lot of big moves. He's done some great things, won Executive of the Year twice. So I understand being a GM is a hard job, man. You got to scout, you got to fly to different countries, look at players, scouting the G League. There's just a lot that goes into it, other than trying to make trades and other things. There's just a lot that goes into the day-to-day business of being a general manager. So I totally understand if he wants to take a break. I mean, like I said, he has a huge resume for sure. And he's taking a break. It's not like he's just turning down the Wizards and going to a different team. So $15 million is definitely a good amount of money. And Ted Leonsis has tried. I'm happy that he's being aggressive and he's trying to get the best people that are out there, instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to look around and just make an in-house hire. So I'm not mad at it. Not happy about it, but I think once again he's getting a good guy, Michael Winger, who's not the GM. We're still looking for a GM, but Ted is trying, and Bob Meyers is going to take a break and probably be with his family. And if you listen to the press conference, you can tell how tired Bob Meyers is. So you don't want to get a guy and force his hand and force him to be a GM and pay him $15 million when his heart isn't 100% in it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right where I'm at with it. You have to deal with what you have to deal with, but at the same time, they still have a pretty exciting person to be in their organization right now with Michael Winger, and fans should be happy with that. Just because you didn't get Bob Myers didn't mean that you didn't get anyone that's quality. And I feel like Michael Winger is just the beginning of the quality that the Wizards will be able to in, insert into their organization if they're really willing to allow him to hire his people. Now that we'll see, and I'm guessing that's the next topic we'll get to as well.
Right, definitely, yeah. And before we do get to that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure you guys use FanDuel on the NBA Finals. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA Finals because right now new customers can get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. You can definitely put a bet on Jokic, his points. I always take the over on his points, rebounds, and assists. He is a triple-double machine. So that's the bet that I always bet on. And I'll probably go with the Nuggets in game one for sure. Yes, that's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. There's no better place to bet all the NBA Finals action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Brandon.
Yes, sir. So, you already mentioned it. We're going to talk about it. Looking at two candidates that are kind of the likeliest candidates in Milt Newton and Will Dawkins. Obviously, both of them have a connection to the organization. Milt Newton previously worked for the Wizards, and Will Dawkins worked with Michael Winger underneath Sam Presti in Oklahoma City. So, which one of these guys do you think has a leg up? Or do you think both of them, it could be either one, or where you at with it?
It sounds like Ted's guy is Milt Newton, and then it sounds like Michael Winger's guy is Will Dawkins. And the thing is, if Ted is truly in on allowing his, president of Monumental Basketball, not just the president of the Washington Wizards, but the president of Monumental Basketball, if that is your true second in command and you trust him to make all the basketball decisions, get out of his way, allow him to hire the guy that he wants to hire. And it looks like Will Dawkins is that guy. Not to mention, Will Dawkins went to Emerson College. Shout out to them. I had a friend that went to Emerson, but he is a very smart guy, still fairly young. He's on the younger side. I feel like that's going to really, bring some innovation to this franchise. He comes from a very strong background in OKC. I just think that that's incredibly important, just to have someone that truly understands how to build a good foundation. I think OKC's always built a good foundation for their teams. They develop guys pretty well. We've seen a number of guys that have flourished out there, and then not to mention they acquire picks. I just love the way they acquire picks. They get their first round picks. They tried multiple times to trade for people. They tried to make Russell Westbrook happy by getting Melo and getting Paul George, because people always forget that Melo was out there with them too, and that was right after the Knicks era of Melo. And then Houston he went to as well. But I just think that that's something that the Wizards have to they have to try to go in that direction of trying to get someone that has that experience trying to win, but also understanding that, like, look, if we can't win right now, we got to make that retool. We got to trade for some picks. You don't go home with your tail tucked in between your legs. You keep trying to fight. And I think that's something that Will Dawkins has done. Now, I'm not saying Milt Newton hasn't learned a thing or two with the Bucks. I mean, because for all we know, he could have learned everything there is to know about player development with the way that Giannis has been since he's joined that organization. But I just think that you get a little worried about having someone that worked with Tommy Shepard, that worked with Ernie Grunfeld, and that's the one thing that it's a hang up. And I just think that they have to go in that direction of getting a Will Dawkins in here, that he gets it. He understands that he has that rapport with Michael Winger. I feel like that's the biggest aspect of it. that rapport and that cohesion that an organization is supposed to have. It's like I think about Mike Elias and Sig Mejdal with the Orioles, right? They both worked with the Houston Astros. They both had a great background together, working together. They might not have been the head guys with the Astros, but they were two guys that worked in lockstep with one another, that saw eye to eye with one another. They brought in more people that also worked in that Astros organization. And I look at, OKC and the Clippers, as organizations that the Wizards should try to build after. Maybe if you can't win, you try to keep going in a direction where, like, look, we have to rebuild, and maybe not maybe not a long-term rebuild. It might be 2 years, might be a 2-year, 1 year kind of thing, and then they bounce right back because they already got the pieces. Because if you trade a guy like, if you were to sign and trade Kuzma, maybe you might be able to scope out a first round pick, and then we'll see what happens with that first round pick the year after. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to get it right here and now because Kuzma's pending free agent, but that's something that the Wizards have to look forward to. And I think that Will Dawkins is that guy that can be able to do that.
Man, that was a dope example you used with Mike Elias, man. I was thinking that too. But I think you're right on, man. I think Will Dawkins is the guy. If I'm willing to bet, is Will Dawkins, because I think you're right on the sense that with Milton Newton's connection to Tommy Shepard, and they're gonna. There's a reason not to bring him here. And it's kind of like politics, man. Each administration cleans out the previous administration's post, and that's just the way it is. When the new administration comes in, they clean house, and I think they're going to do the same thing. They're going to clean house, and I think the right way is Will Dawkins. But another thing you mentioned that is on point, man, is foundation. When have we ever had a foundation? I mean, if you look at our drafting record, I mean, John Wall and Bradley Beal were pretty obvious picks. I mean, you don't get any points for getting John Wall in that draft, because who else you going to get at number one in that draft? And same thing with Bill. You got to roll with Bill in that draft, man. So, but you got to have a foundation. It comes with scouting. And that's another thing that I think I'm optimistic about, is that I think they're going to revamp this scouting department, because you have to hit on your first round picks. Under Ernie Grunfeld, we traded away your first round picks like it's candy, man. I mean, you mentioned earlier, Bogdanovich, first round pick for Bogdanovich, right? And we didn't even retain him that year. So we gave up a first round pick for Markieff Morris, which Morris came in, he played well for us, but we had to get out of that sense of trying to trade a first round pick every single year. And the same, both of you mentioned it earlier, second round picks. I mean, where is our second round pick from last year? I mean, he averages, I think, 1.5 points a game. I mean, I think he's a lot more than a couple years away. I think he's a decade away. I mean, he's just not there, man. But you got to hit on picks, man. You got to hit on picks. And I think that, so you hit the nail on the head, foundation. Because again, NBA wise, to me, Cleveland's an example of drafting, and then building through trade. Because again, Cleveland has never been that destination. Washington, D.C., I don't think it's the city. I think it's a little more the organization, why we're not a destination for free agents, because I don't think D.C. as a city is a slouch. Now, we're not, bright lights like L.A. and New York, but, it's a dope city. But so I think it has a lot more to do with the organization, why people don't want to come here. But Cleveland Cavaliers, they're the model. And even if you want to go deeper, Golden State, Stephen Curry was drafted there. Klay Thompson was drafted there. Draymond Green was a second round pick. And then when it came down to making that push to compete, because people forget, Stephen Curry dealt with some issues his first 3 years, whether it was injuries, had a lot of ankle injuries, being consistent. It wasn't just, Stephen Curry came in the league and was lighting the league on fire. No, they developed Stephen Curry. He was that shooter in college, but he wasn't a complete player. And really, if you look at his game, he's evolved. But let's get off Stephen Curry. We're talking about the Wizards here. But, building through the draft is what we need to start doing, man. Because one, you're getting players who can develop and can contribute on the bench. But then you're getting guys who down the line, if you want to do a rebuild, you have guys who you've developed who can come in and start. I mean, it's longevity for your organization. And that's what we've never had, man. We've always had these moves, these mind-raking moves like Kelly Oubre for Trevor Ariza, where you're trading away a guy who's a young guy that you drafted for a guy that you're not even going to have the next year. And we mentioned Bogdanovich, the list goes on. And so we have to, I think both of you guys are right, man. I'm very optimistic because Michael Winger is a good move, not only for personnel, but for finance, for the business side. They're trying to market his team and put it up there with other teams and put some prestige on the name, man. Put some respect on that name, right? So I think that, bringing in a basketball guy, right, that kind of team up with the financial side, I think we're cooking with grease, man. I like what I see with this front office because, man, top-down model, man. Looking at the Jerry Krause when he made those comments, when he sparred with Michael Jordan, talking about, Jerry Krause always believed that organizations win championships, where Michael Jordan believed that, the player is the most important part. And I get both sides. The player is the most instrumental part, but organizations win championships. Every championship organization, you see a stable and competent front office behind that team. Golden State, Bob Meyers. I mean, the list goes on with championship teams. Your general manager and his ability to find the right personnel that fit the right systems is key. And we are really walking down the right path for this organization. Very, very happy. So, another question for you. Look, we're going to get to the real deal, Bradley Beal, the franchise guy, going into year 2 of the Supermax. Now, what do you think is the biggest motivating factor for him when to stay here long term? Is it loyalty? Is it the money, or does the scoring record have a lot to do with that? What do you think?
Well, I'll start this first. I think DC is a beautiful city to raise a family in. I think that's a big thing, and he has a young family that I'm sure that Kamaya and Brad want to be in DC long term because look, let's be real. DC is a great place to live. It is a destination city. So I think that's first things first, but that's just a little speculation, but that's number one. But then when it comes to basketball, I think he does want to break their record. I think he does want to be the face of the Wizards. I think that's the ultimate goal for him, to be someone that is respected among the Arenases, the Walls, the Jamesons, the Butlers, the list goes on from that era of Wizards basketball, but I don't know if he'll ever get to the Bullets level of guys where, Bullets had some Hall of Famers. So, but when it comes to the Wizards, I just think he wants to be that guy. He wants to be that face where people truly respect him as the guy who, turned around this franchise. I think that he wants to stick there for the long term. I think it's purely, some people say, oh, yeah, well, he's staying here for the money. But the thing is, he already got paid. So he could leave. If he wants to get traded and some team is willing to take his contract, then he can go. But he's here. He's with the Wizards, and I just think that's something that people have to just. He's not a bad basketball player. I wish that's the one thing I get hung up on about this contract is that Bradley Beal is a very good basketball player. I just think the contract makes it looks so much worse that fans give him this hate that they really shouldn't give him. And sometimes I fall into the I don't understand why Beal's on the team, but it's just because of his contract number. And I'm a person that sides with the players 99.9% of the time. I believe that, like, not to get all off track, but I'm a person that believes that the players deserve that. They're the people that put the product on the court. They're the ones that control the destiny. Now you need people to guide them in that right direction. Like you said, you need good organizations to back those players up. And I think that the Wizards, they need to back Beal up. They need to back him up and give him something to work with. And I think the way you do that is you help with player development. You help with, getting him the right people on that team. I think back to John Wall and Bradley Beal when they were in their prime, and everybody screamed and banged on the table for Paul George. And they didn't get Paul George. Because the thing is, look, even if Paul George wanted out, guess what? A couple of years later, maybe the Wizards get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You never know. So I'm just like, I think about that, and I'm like, dang, they really failed them multiple times back then. Because if you package a bunch of first round picks, look, if they were going to trade the first round picks anyway, They should have gotten somebody better than just, and I really like Markieff Morris. I really like Bogey, but you got to try to get them a bona fide star. You cannot try to just give Beal, a bunch of tertiary pieces that aren't, I mean, to be quite frank, aren't going to do much. But you also have to be able to draft, and develop guys as well. I mean, second round picks sometimes have to hit. Sometimes you have to have a second round pick that becomes a starter, that becomes a very serviceable starter, that becomes a, quality guy off the bench. Your first round picks have to be solid. These starters, they have to be the guys. You cannot just have first round picks that just, turn into a wallflower when things happen. It just can't happen. I mean, it's like, I feel like some of their first round picks have turned into pumpkins. It's like Cinderella, but I just look at that and I'm like, surround Beal with that talent, make sure that he's insulated, and that goes to the coaching staff too. And it also goes on Beal. It's a team effort. It's an organizational effort. It is a player effort. And you need it. Either the players need to speak up and be, somebody needs to take over reins in a leadership like that. The coaching staff needs to speak up, and it needs to be a cohesive, thing. But I think that's why Beal ultimately wants to stay here, because he wants to see that through. And, for better or for worse, people have to respect him for it. Because I know a lot of other people that would have dipped out of here as soon as things started getting tough, and he's been through it.
Yeah, let me say this. This previous year, I've been very hard on Bradley Beal. Very, very hard on him. I'll be the first person to say that. But the reason for that is not him as a person. Look, top three Wizards to me is Gilbert Arenas, John Wall, Bradley Beal. To me, personally. Love his game, love him as a person. What he's done off the court, to me, is just magic. Him, John Wall was huge in the community. The 1 year Russell Westbrook was huge in the community. Kind of harder for him because of the pandemic, but what he's done for the city, man, you can't say it enough. And look, this ain't his first big deal. Now, this is the biggest deal he signed, but like you said, he's signed deals to stay here. He's been here 10 plus. So, but now the criticism is the contract. And the reason for that, because that contract, it paints a certain expectations, not only of the organization, but of you as a player. And I've gotten on him about leadership. He's, not everybody's rah-rah, in your face, trying to motivate people. He's kind of a, easygoing guy, and I get that. Bad body language sometimes, and just, crunch time moments in the fourth quarter. That's why I've been on him. The contract is just, because like I said, there are expectations in that contract. For you personally as a player, that contract tells me that you're the guy that takes the last shot. I don't want to hear issues about not being clutch, man. You get paid $50+ million a year, you need to take the last shot. I'm just saying you should want to take that last shot. That's part of being that guy. If you ask Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, any top player, I mean, it's famous in the documentary of Michael Jordan. They ask him, who takes the last shot? Easy, I do. That's what you want to see. And so that's my criticism of Bradley Beal. It's purely on contract. I think the contract, man, it's tough to say, because on one hand, I want to say, should he have taken less, knowing that would have freed up space to build around him? Yeah. But then did he deserve to a certain degree the loyalty to get a bag? Yeah. So as him as a player, I love Bradley Beal as a player. As him as a person, outstanding person, high character. Can't say enough, man. It's just the contract. Like you said, the contract is a monster, man. And look, let's paint this picture. He's the only player in the NBA with a no trade clause. Now, in a league where you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Stephen Curry, and LeBron James, Bradley Beal is the only player in the NBA with a no trade clause. I mean, and that kind of goes into my next point is Bradley Beal made his money being a scorer, not bringing the ball up, not trying to do these other things, man. The fact of the matter, that contract has pushed him into areas where he's not really meant to be. Bradley Beal should not be bringing the ball up. But the fact of the matter, like I said, $50 million, he wants to be that guy doing it. So, it's just, I think that's where the problem lies, is that the money, the expectations, Bradley Beal needs to go back to being a shooting guard, the scorer, because that's how he got his bag, because he is still a top tier scorer in his league. And look, he is not a scrub. I've never, ever said that Bradley Beal's a scrub. He is not. No, sir. No, Bradley Beal can play some basketball. It's just the contract is what gets a lot of criticism for him, man, especially from me, because I'll be the first person to say, look, I was hard on him. Him and Wes got a lot of smoke
Well,
this
me
previous
too.
season, man. I'll admit to it, man. But the fact of the matter is, I love Bradley Beal as a player. Now, have I advocated trade? Yeah, because of the contract. I believe that it frees up money, but him being here long term, I have no problem with that. I know people are gonna be like, oh, look, I have no problem with that, man. Because he deserves to be up there in the hierarchy of the Wizards because he, like you said, the loyalty. He could have left a long time ago. No, how many extensions has he signed? I mean, he signed the extension right after John Wall got hurt. He signed extensions to stay here. He could have left a long time ago and he stayed. So, like you said, DC ain't no scrub as a city, man. I love DC. Look, raised in DC area, man. I love it. I think it has a lot to do with the past positions that this organization has been in and why people don't want to come here. Because how many people really wanted to play under Ernie Grunfeld? I think that's the biggest thing. So I think city-wise, I think this organization is going the right way, man. But as far as Bradley Beal, I don't see him going anywhere because it comes down to this. It comes down to any business is that what does your competitors or your rivals think of your product, right? How many and I'm not saying he doesn't have value because there are teams that will pick up Bradley Beal easy, right? His name has been linked already to teams. We talked about Boston, Philadelphia's been linked, but if I'm an opposing GM, do I really want to dedicate that amount of cap room to a guy who, look, I'm in my 30s. I don't think I lost a step, maybe a little bit, but from a sports standpoint, the 30s you're starting to get old. So and you look at his 3-point percentage. I believe he shot 30% last year. He's not that sharpshooter like he used to be. He's more of a mid-range guy, like in the mold of a DeRozan. So and that's cool. But the fact of the matter is, I think to really help him long term, longevity for him in DC is you got to find a point guard. Take the ball out of his hands in the fourth quarter, set him up, and let him be that scorer that we know he can be. And I think he's good. I think he's going to have a good year, man. I think because with the new competent leadership in DC, and I believe we're going to get that point guard, whether it's a vet, rookie, remains to be seen. But a point guard who is pass first, who can open up the floor, who can collapse the defense by driving the lane and really utilize the shooters. I think Bradley Beal could be an all-star this year. And I know people think I'm crazy, but I think with a proper point guard, I think he'd be an all-star because this roster needs a point guard. Because I asked E, and I'm going to ask you. All right, last year, if you had a point guard who could stretch the floor, who could push the pace, who had a little bit of link to him, who could play defense, do we make the playoffs?
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing is that if you have a point guard that truly can give them some help and keep guys fresh. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Point guards are supposed to take up the bulk of the usage on a team, right? You don't want I don't want my shooting guard getting worn into the ground because you need his legs late. And the thing is, like, I don't know how many people watch Bradley Beal play in person. I'm sure a lot of people that listen to the show have. But when you watch Bradley Beal in person, at the beginning of the games, he is fast, man. He's explosive. And that's the thing. Like, they have a lot of they have some. Beal is one of the most explosive guys that I've seen the Wizards have. Like, you remember Gilbert Arenas when he was at his best, and Gil would he might not have been able to jump out the gym, but he was able to get things going, and he was quick. And that's the same kind of elite athleticism that I think Beal has. So I just look at them and I'm like, they need to take the ball out of his hands. They need to allow him to cook off the ball. We need to let Porzingis be able to stay fresh. And having a good point guard is the head of that.
So before I hand the mic over, I'm gonna ask both of you guys a question real quick. So Bradley Beal gets a scoring record. In your eyes, does that put him at the top? Is he that iconic guy when you look at Washington Wizards basketball, outside of the older guys from the 1970s, as far as Wizards, if he gets that scoring record and even leads us to the playoffs this year, does that solidify him as that guy for the Washington Wizards as far as this franchise history?
I'll let Ed go first on that one.
Oh, go ahead again, Brandon.
If Bradley Beal, I presume he's going to get the record unless he gets hurt like the first game. After he breaks that scoring record, and even if he leads his team to the playoffs next year, does that solidify him as probably the face of the franchise as far as the history of his team outside of the championship team?
Oh yeah, he's going to be the face for this team, this regime. Of course, there's been better Wizards than him, or more faces of the franchise. Gilbert Arenas, John Wall. But yeah, as far as this franchise, yeah, if he makes an All-Star team, and he made an All-Star team twice in the past with John Wall. But yeah, if he can get back up to being that elite scorer that he's been, he had a good scoring season. Again, his percentages, 3-point percentage went up, field goal percentage went up. Just has to finish games, just has to hit those shots, cut down on the turnovers, dribble off his feet on the last second of the game, the last couple seconds of the game, last couple possessions of the game. So yeah, I would definitely would say yes. And to piggyback on you guys' answers too, just Wes Unseld Jr. as a coach too, losing the 15+ point leads, we led the league in that, so that's inexcusable. And nobody's innocent on that. Bradley Beal's a part of that too. But Wes is the common denominator on that because that happened last year as well. But to answer your question, yes, I definitely would say that with Bradley Beal would be the face. It's between him and Porzingis. Porzingis was looking like a leader of the team at some points last year for sure. He had some huge games. Had a 40-point game against the Timberwolves. Had a couple games where he hit a good amount of threes, dominated, and looked like the Porzingis of old, the unicorn. There were some games where Kuzma stepped up too. So, but I would say Bradley Beal, he's supposed to be the face of the franchise, especially with the contract.
And I'm right there with you on that. He should be the face of the franchise, but that it goes to show you they need to win games. If Bradley Beal can win those games, if he could get you to the playoffs, if he could take you to the second round Eastern Conference Finals, then I'm like, you know what? Hey, look, he's that guy. It's just like how people look at Dame out in Portland. Dame constantly gets them to the Western Conference Finals. Dame is constantly showing that he could score 50, 60 points a game, every couple games. It seems like, but I think that's something that Beal has to try to take his game to. Does he want to be, looked at in more of a Damian Lillard sense, or does he want to be looked at more in the way that he is now? And I think that's the way to get there, is to start winning.
Yes, sir. I totally agree. So before we roll, E, you got anything else, man?
No, man, this is a great episode. Kyle, do you have anything to promote?
Yes, I just want everybody to listen to the Capital Crossover podcast. You can follow us at Capital Cross Pod on Twitter, and then my personal Twitter is Kyle J Andrews _. Follow me on Twitter as well. And thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we get you all on too.
Yes, sir. 100%. We definitely got to get that going for sure. I just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. For everydayers, check out more draft talk next week, and hopefully we find a GM. Possibly could be Will Dawkins, so we'll definitely break that news to you if it does happen. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Capital Crossover podcast for our guy, Kyle Andrews. Thank you once again for coming on. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter.
Yes, sir.
And, we'll put his Twitter down in the description box as well, so you guys can follow him on Twitter and social media. Once again, subscribe, hit the like button, hell to the Wizards. Peace.